My name is Jake, 34M, and my wife, Lauren, 31F, just betrayed me in a way I never imagined. We've been together for 8 years, married for 5, and I truly thought we had a solid marriage. She was everything I wanted, beautiful, charming, and, honestly, a little too good at getting her way. I always brushed it off as confidence, but now I realize it was something else entirely. Lauren and I met at a mutual friend's wedding. She was the life of the party, making everyone laugh, and I was just the quiet guy who couldn't take my eyes off her. She pursued me hard, and before I knew it, we were inseparable. She had an ex, Brian, 33M, who she occasionally mentioned in passing. Nothing serious, just that one guy who wouldn't leave her alone. I never had a reason to doubt her. She always reassured me that she had no interest in him, that he was a pathetic loser who still thought they had a chance. But now I know sometimes when people talk too much about how they don't care about someone, it means they do. The first red flag should have been how secretive she was with her phone. But I trusted her. I thought we were happy. I thought I was enough. I was wrong. Looking back, the signs were there. I just didn't want to see them. Lauren had always been glued to her phone, but she got really protective of it in the last few months. If I walked by while she was texting, she'd tilt the screen away. If I asked who she was talking to, she'd give me vague answers, just a friend or work stuff. One time, I playfully reached for her phone while she was on it, and she yanked it away so fast you'd think I was trying to steal state secrets. I brushed it off. Maybe she was planning a surprise for me. Maybe she just liked her privacy. After all, I wasn't the type to snoop. Then came the late nights. Lauren had always been a homebody, but suddenly, she had so many plans with the girls. Dinners, drinks, spontaneous weekend outings. I'd ask who was going, and she'd rattle off the same few names, but when I casually brought it up to one of her friends at a get-together, she looked confused. "I haven't seen Lauren in weeks," she said. My stomach dropped. I asked another one of her friends. Same reaction. That was the moment I knew something was seriously wrong. But I still didn't want to believe it. I told myself it had to be a misunderstanding. Maybe she had other friends I didn't know well. Maybe they forgot. Maybe I was overthinking. Then one night Lauren came home late, really late. Her makeup was smudged, and she reeked of alcohol and something else I couldn't quite place. She saw me waiting on the couch and froze. "Didn't expect you to still be up," she muttered, kicking off her heels. "Where were you?" I asked, keeping my voice calm. She sighed dramatically. "Ugh, Jake. I was out. Do we really have to do this?" "Out where?" "With the girls," she said automatically. But she wouldn't look at me, so I tried something different. "Oh yeah? Which ones?" She hesitated, just for a second. But that second was all I needed. "You don't know them," she finally said. That was the first outright lie I caught her in. But it wouldn't be the last. That night I barely slept. My mind kept replaying the way Lauren hesitated when I asked who she was with. The way she smelled. Like expensive cologne that wasn't mine. The way her body tensed when I questioned her. I wanted to believe her. I needed to believe her. But something was off. The next morning, while she was in the shower, I did something I never thought I'd do. I checked her phone. She had a password. She never used to. I felt sick, but I wasn't giving up that easily. I knew Lauren's habits. She wasn't exactly creative when it came to passwords. I tried her birthday. Nolak. Our anniversary. Nothing. Then I tried the one thing I hoped she wouldn't use. Her ex's name. Brian. The screen unlocked. I stared at it, my hands shaking. I went straight to her messages. And that's when my worst fear became reality. There he was. Brian. The same guy she always called pathetic. The same guy she swore she had no feelings for. And their conversation. It made me want to throw up. "Last night was amazing. I've missed you so much. I hate sneaking around, but I can't stay away from you. Jake doesn't suspect a thing. He's so clueless." My blood ran cold. I scrolled up, my heart pounding. There were photos, messages stretching back months. Lauren was never out with the girls. She was with him, and the worst part? She wasn't even conflicted about it. She enjoyed it. I heard the water turn off in the bathroom. My time was up. I locked her phone, put it back exactly where I found it, and sat on the bed, gripping my hands together so tightly my knuckles turned white. I wasn't going to explode. Not yet. No, I was going to wait. Because if Lauren thought I was clueless, she was about to learn just how wrong she was. I sat there, staring at the floor, trying to keep my breathing steady. My hands were clenched so tightly that my nails dug into my palms, but I forced myself to stay calm. If I confronted her right away, she'd deny everything. She'd cry, twist the story, gaslight me until I started questioning what I saw with my own eyes. No, I wasn't going to give her that chance. Lauren walked out of the bathroom, a towel wrapped around her, completely oblivious to the storm raging inside me. "Morning," she said casually, like she hadn't just spent the night with another man. I forced a smile. "Morning." She walked over and kissed my cheek, and for the first time in our marriage, I felt nothing but disgust. I needed a plan. Over the next few days, I played the role of the trusting husband perfectly. I didn't ask where she was going. I didn't act suspicious. If anything, I was extra affectionate, texting her sweet messages, offering to take her out to dinner. I needed her to think I was completely in the dark. And it worked. Lauren became even bolder. She started taking calls in the other room, laughing softly into her phone like a lovesick teenager. One night, she came home wearing a necklace I had never seen before. Another time, I caught a glimpse of a text from Brian pop up on her screen. "Can't wait to see you again. Miss you already." She barely bothered hiding it anymore. And that's exactly what I wanted. I wasn't just going to catch her. I was going to destroy her. I knew I couldn't confront Lauren without solid, undeniable proof. She was a master manipulator. If I just threw accusations at her, she'd cry, twist my words, and somehow make me feel guilty. So I had to be smart. I started small. One evening, while she was in the shower, I installed a simple tracking app on her phone. It was easy. Lauren was careless with her security, still using the same password I had already cracked. This app would show me exactly where she went, down to the address. Then I went even further. Lauren had an old iPad she never used, stuffed in a drawer in our home office. She had forgotten to disconnect it from her iCloud account. With a few taps, I linked it back up, and suddenly, every text she sent, every call she made, synced right to that iPad. It only took a few hours before I had everything I needed. That night, while Lauren curled up on the couch next to me, pretending to be a devoted wife, I sat there quietly, reading real-time messages popping up on the iPad. "Brian, you're still coming over tomorrow, right?" Lauren, "Of course, babe. Jake has no clue. I told him I'm going to a spa day with the girls." Brian, "Can't wait. I'll have the wine ready," winky face. I felt my jaw tighten, but I forced myself to stay calm. Lauren had just handed me the perfect opportunity. The next day, while she got dressed for her spa day, I kissed her on the forehead and told her to have fun. I even offered to make her coffee for the road. She had no idea I had already checked the tracker. She wasn't heading to any spa. She was going straight to Brian's apartment. As soon as she left, I grabbed my keys and followed her. I wasn't going alone. I wasn't just going to catch her. I was going to make sure she couldn't lie her way out of it. So I made a few calls. First, I called her best friend, Rachel. Rachel, 32F, and Lauren had been close for years, but lately, I had sensed some tension between them. Rachel had always been a straight shooter, and something told me she wouldn't defend Lauren if she knew the truth. "Hey, Rachel," I said, keeping my voice casual. "Lauren told me you guys are having a spa day today. Just wanted to check what time she's coming home." There was a long silence. "Spa day," Rachel finally said. "Jake, I haven't seen Lauren in weeks." I felt a bitter satisfaction settle in my chest. That confirmed it. "She's lying to me," I said bluntly, "and I need you to see it for yourself." Rachel didn't hesitate. "Where do you need me to be?" Then, I made my second call, to Lauren's brother, Matt, 29M. Unlike Rachel, Matt was hesitant at first. "Dude, I don't want to get in the middle of your marriage," he sighed. I let out a humorless laugh. Matt, I get it, but your sister is cheating on me. With her ex. Do you really want to defend that? Silence. Then a sharp exhale. Where are we meeting? Bingo. An hour later, I sat in my car down the street from Brian's apartment, my heart pounding as I watched Lauren's location tracker settle at his address. Rachel and Matt pulled up a few minutes later. They both looked grim, like they didn't want to believe what they already knew. You ready? Rachel asked. I clenched my jaw and nodded. Let's do this. We walked up to Brian's apartment, my pulse thundering in my ears. I raised my hand and knocked. Once, twice. Then I heard movement inside. A shuffle. A laugh. The door swung open, and there stood Brian, shirtless, his hair a mess, looking way too comfortable. And behind him, Lauren, wearing nothing but one of his t-shirts. Her eyes widened in sheer panic as she saw me, and then Rachel and then Matt. Her mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water, her brain clearly scrambling for an explanation. But for once, she had nothing. For a second, nobody spoke. Lauren stood frozen, her face draining of color. Brian looked between us, then at her, like he hadn't signed up for this level of chaos. Meanwhile, Rachel's lips curled in disgust, and Matt's expression went from confusion to outright rage. And me? I just felt empty. Lauren was the first to break the silence. Jake? She stammered, clutching the hem of Brian's oversized t-shirt like it could somehow shield her from reality. What are you doing here? Rachel let out a bitter laugh. What is he doing here? Lauren, are you serious? She gestured wildly. Maybe you should explain why you're here, in his apartment, wearing his clothes. Lauren's eyes darted everywhere, looking for an escape. I can explain. Save it. I cut in, my voice eerily calm. We all know what's going on. I took a slow step forward, watching as she shrank back. But go ahead, Lauren. I'd love to hear whatever lie you've got locked and loaded. For a split second, I saw it, the gears turning in her head, the moment she considered trying to manipulate her way out of this. But Matt's presence must have thrown her off, because instead of her usual smooth deflection, she blurted out the worst possible excuse. This isn't what it looks like. Rachel nearly choked. Oh, come on. That's literally the most cliché line in the book. She turned to Brian, her arms crossed. And what's your excuse? Brian, the absolute coward, just raised his hands in surrender. Hey, I didn't know she was still married. I let out a dark chuckle. Bullshit. I saw your messages. I pulled out my phone, scrolling through the texts synced from Lauren's iPad. You knew, and you didn't care. Brian had the decency to at least look guilty. Lauren, on the other hand, she switched tactics fast. Her face crumpled as she turned to me. Jake, please, she whimpered, tears welling up in her eyes. I made a mistake, okay? I love you. Matt let out a sharp breath, shaking his head. You love him? You love him. His voice rose. Lauren, I defended you my whole life. I told people you weren't selfish, that you weren't like this. His jaw tightened. But you are. Lauren reached for him. Matt, please. No, he stepped back like her touch would burn him. I'm done making excuses for you. Her expression crumbled. But I wasn't about to let her guilt trip him too. This marriage, I said, my voice steady. It's over, Lauren. And trust me, you're gonna regret this more than you know. For the first time, true fear flashed in her eyes. What do you mean? I glanced at Brian, then back at her. You'll see. And with that, I turned and walked away, leaving Lauren standing in the wreckage she created. I walked away, but I wasn't done. Lauren's face, full of fear and desperation, was burned into my mind. But I didn't feel sorry for her. Not even a little. She made her choices. Now she'd deal with the consequences. Rachel caught up with me first. Jake, wait, she called, grabbing my arm. What do you mean? She's gonna regret this? I turned to her, my mind already racing. I'm not just leaving her, Rachel. I'm going to make sure she feels this. Rachel studied me for a moment, then nodded. Good. She deserves it. Matt was silent. He looked like he wanted to say something, but instead, he just exhaled sharply and rubbed his face. I can't believe this, he muttered. She's my sister. And she played you just like she played me, I said flatly. But she won't get away with it this time. Lauren had no idea what was coming. I drove home, my grip on the steering wheel tight. My mind wasn't clouded with rage anymore. No, I was thinking clearly now. By the time Lauren came home a few hours later, I was already in the process of dismantling her life. She walked through the door cautiously, like she expected me to throw a lamp at her. Jake? Can we talk? I didn't even look up from my laptop. I already filed for divorce. She let out a choked sound. What? I filed? I repeated, my voice emotionless. I also canceled all our joint credit cards, locked you out of my bank accounts, and made sure you won't see a dime from me once this is finalized. Her face twisted in panic. Jake, please, don't do this. It was a mistake. Oh, I know. I cut in, finally meeting her eyes. Your mistake. I gestured at the stack of papers on the counter. You can sign them now, or you can drag this out and make it worse for yourself. She swallowed hard. Jake, don't you love me? I let out a bitter laugh. I did, but you killed that. Tears streamed down her face. I can't believe you're doing this. I tilted my head. Neither can Brian. Did you know his girlfriend was very interested to hear what you two have been up to? Her face went ghost white. You? Oh yeah, I said, smirking slightly. I made sure to send her every message, every picture, every little detail. Guess he won't be your problem anymore. She opened her mouth, then closed it, realizing she had nothing left to say. For the first time in our marriage, Lauren had lost control. And I had never felt more free. Lauren stood there, her face pale, her body stiff like a trapped animal. She had spent years perfecting the art of control, manipulating situations, twisting truths, making sure she always came out on top. But now she was powerless. Her voice was barely above a whisper. You told Brian's girlfriend? Oh, I didn't just tell her, I said, crossing my arms. I showed her. Screenshots, timestamps, everything. Lauren's lips parted, but no words came out. I saw the exact moment she realized what this meant. Brian wasn't just some fling, he was her backup plan. And now, that plan was crumbling right along with everything else. I let the silence stretch between us, watching as her hands trembled. Then she tried again. Jake, No. I cut her off. You don't get to explain. You chose this, and now you're going to deal with the fallout. She exhaled shakily, her eyes darting around the room like she was looking for an escape. But there wasn't one. I gestured to the divorce papers again. Sign them, Lauren. Be smart for once. Her jaw clenched. You're not even going to try to work through this? That made me laugh. Actually laugh. You didn't work through your decision to cheat, I said coldly. So why should I? Tears welled in her eyes again, but I wasn't buying it. Not anymore. She wasn't crying because she loved me. She was crying because she was losing. I stood up, grabbing my keys. You have until tomorrow to get your stuff and leave. Her head snapped up. Leave. This is my house, I reminded her. Your name isn't on the lease. And since I've already talked to our landlord, I can have you legally removed if you don't go willingly. Her face twisted in anger. You're really kicking me out? You kicked us out the second you climbed into Brian's bed. I stared at her, my voice calm. So yeah, I am. I didn't give her a chance to argue. I walked past her, grabbed my bag, and left. And for the first time in months I felt lighter. I didn't go far. I just needed to be anywhere but that house. So I drove to Matt's place. When he opened the door, he didn't say anything. He just stepped aside and let me in. I must have looked as exhausted as I felt. You good? He finally asked as I sank onto his couch. I let out a slow breath. Yeah, I think I actually am. Matt sat across from me, his jaw tight. I still can't believe she did this. I mean, I can. But I didn't want to. He rubbed a hand over his face. I always thought if she ever screwed up, it'd be in some selfish way, like spending too much money or lying about something small. But this, he shook his head. She blew up her whole damn life. She didn't think she'd get caught, I muttered. That's the difference. Matt leaned forward, his elbows on his knees. So what now? I exhaled. She has until tomorrow to get out of my house. After that, I don't care what she does. Matt nodded, but something flickered across his face. He hesitated. What? I asked. He sighed. She called my mom. I blinked. Are you kidding me? Nope, he said, grimacing. Mom texted me, all upset, saying Lauren was crying about how you blindsided her and threw her out on the street. He shook his head. She left out the part where she cheated, obviously. I clenched my jaw. Of course she did. Matt held up a hand. Don't worry. I shut that down fast. Told Mom everything. His expression darkened. She's not happy with Lauren right now. I let out a dry chuckle. Well, at least she's burning all her bridges. And she was. Rachel texted me that night too, saying half their mutual friends had already heard the news. Lauren had always loved attention. But now, she was getting it in the worst way. I should have felt bad. But I didn't. Because this was exactly what she deserved. The next day, I went back to the house. I half expected Lauren to still be there, sitting in the living room, ready to launch into some dramatic monologue about how we could fix this, how we could rebuild after her betrayal. But when I walked in, the place was almost empty. Her suitcases were by the door, and she was standing in the kitchen, staring at the counter where the divorce papers still sat, and signed. She looked up when I entered. Her eyes were red and swollen, like she had spent all night crying. But I didn't feel sorry for her, not even a little. You're actually going through with this, she murmured. I scoffed. Lauren, you thought I was bluffing? She swallowed hard. She trailed off, her fingers gripping the edge of the counter. I don't know how we got here. I tilted my head. She winced. I stepped closer, my voice calm. Lauren, you got us here. You chose Brian. You lied to me. You made fun of me behind my back. So yeah, I'm going through with this. She bit her lip, looking down at the papers. I just thought, maybe we could talk first. I sighed, pinching the bridge of my nose. What is there to talk about? She hesitated. Then finally she said it. I don't want to lose you. Something in me snapped. I let out a humorless laugh. Oh, now you don't want to lose me? Lauren, you had months to care about this marriage, and you didn't. I shook my head. You don't miss me. You miss the stability. You miss the version of me that let you get away with everything. Her eyes filled with tears. Jake, please. No, I said firmly. We're done. Sign the papers. Take your stuff and leave. She stared at me for a long time, searching for something. Sympathy, hesitation, anything. But I had nothing left to give her. And I think she finally realized it. Her hands trembled as she picked up the pen. She signed the papers in silence, then grabbed her bags and walked toward the door. Right before she stepped out, she turned back one last time. I really did love you, she whispered. I met her gaze, my voice steady. Not enough. And with that, she walked out of my life for good. The door clicked shut behind Lauren, and for a long time, I just stood there, listening to the silence. For the first time in years, the house felt different. Lighter, like the weight of her lies had finally lifted. I should have felt relief, or triumph, maybe even satisfaction. But all I felt was exhausted. I didn't love Lauren anymore, not after everything, but the grief still hit me in a strange way. It wasn't grief for her. It was grief for the man I used to be, the one who truly believed in our marriage. The one who thought love was enough to keep someone faithful. That man was gone now. The fallout was immediate. Lauren had nowhere to go, and even though it wasn't my problem, I found out through Rachel that she was couch surfing between friends. Most of them weren't exactly eager to help after hearing the truth. Brian, he didn't stick around. Turns out, When his girlfriend dumped him and his reputation took a hit, he decided Lauren wasn't worth the trouble. Karma works fast. Lauren tried reaching out a few times. First, through emails, long, rambling apologies about how she wasn't thinking straight and how she didn't want to hurt me. Then through Matt. She keeps asking if there's any chance you'll take her back, he told me one day. I just laughed. Not in this lifetime. Matt nodded. Good. She doesn't deserve it. Took a while, but eventually I started living again. The divorce went through without a hitch, and I never saw Lauren again after that last day. Rachel and Matt stayed in my life, proving that not everyone around me had been fake. And surprisingly, I didn't walk away from this bitter. Wiser, yes, but not bitter. Because at the end of the day, Lauren may have betrayed me, but I walked away with my dignity, my self-respect, and the knowledge that I never needed her to be happy. She, on the other hand, she lost everything, and that was the best revenge I could have ever asked for. Thank you for staying with me. This crazy journey is finally over and I'm ready for what's next. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any more interesting stories. And leave a comment with what you would do in this situation. See you in the next videos.